Since their discovery in the early 1800s, dinosaurs have captured the world's imagination. From their towering size to their fearsome teeth, they've inspired endless questions, such as how did they live and what did they look like? But one even trickier question has stood out for decades: just how smart were dinosaurs? In movies and media, they've been shown across a wide spectrum, from dumb, lumbering beasts to brilliant creatures capable of outsmarting even humans. In today's video, we'll explore the methods scientists used to uncover just how intelligent dinosaurs really were, and then count down 10 of the smartest dinosaurs of all time. All this and more in this episode of Creature Archives. Now, of course, figuring out the intelligence of animals that went extinct over 65 million years ago isn't simple. With living animals, scientists can use tests like puzzle-solving tasks, tool use experiments, or even mirror recognition to gauge problem-solving and self-awareness. But we can't do any of that with dinosaurs. Instead, paleontologists have to piece things together using a mix of anatomy, behavioral clues, and even diet. One of the earliest and most widely used tools in gauging intelligence is the encephalization quotient, or EQ. Basically the brain-to-body ratio. This concept was formally introduced by neuroscientist Harry Jarrison in 1973 as a way to standardize comparisons of brain size across animals of very different body sizes. EQ gives a rough idea of how large a brain is compared to what you'd expect for an animal's size. However, EQ is also a bit controversial. Some studies argue that it's not the best measure of intelligence because it doesn't account for things like neuron density or how the brain is actually wired. For example, some animals with relatively low EQs can still be surprisingly clever if their brains are structured efficiently. Crocodilians, for instance, have small brains relative to body size compared to mammals or birds, yet they show surprisingly complex behaviors like coordinated hunting, vocal communication, and even advanced parental care. All of that said, EQ isn't useless. Many animals we recognize today as highly intelligent, like primates, dolphins, and perhaps most relevantly, many birds, the closest living relatives of dinosaurs, also happen to score well on EQ tests. So while it isn't a perfect metric, it still provides an important starting point for understanding which dinosaurs may have had more cognitive potential than others. In addition to this, the structure of the brain matters too. Enlarged forebrains point towards problem-solving abilities, while expanded sensory regions suggest sharper vision, smell, or hearing. Some researchers even try to estimate neuron counts in dinosaurs and then compare those numbers to modern animals, giving us a rough sense of their potential processing power. But bones only tell part of the story. Fossils can also preserve behavior, giving us glimpses into how dinosaurs live their lives. For example, trackways sometimes show groups of individuals moving in the same direction, which hints at social behavior. Nest and egg clutches reveal careful reproductive strategies, and in some cases, adults have even been found near hatchlings, a good sign of parental care. There are also fossil sites where multiple predators are associated with the same prey, raising the possibility of cooperative hunting. All of this evidence suggests that some dinosaurs weren't just acting on basic instincts. They were social, adaptable, and capable of more complex behaviors than we might expect. Finally, there's diet. What a dinosaur ate could tell us a lot about its cognitive demands. Animals with broad, flexible diets often need to be more innovative than highly specialized feeders, figuring out how to find and exploit a variety of food sources. Predators hunting fast or elusive prey likely relied on memory, strategy, and coordination to succeed, while herbivores navigating complex environments might need spatial awareness and problem-solving skills to locate food and avoid danger. Now that we've gone over the main ways to measure dinosaur intelligence, it's time to count down the 10 smartest dinosaurs of all time. But first, if you enjoy this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Starting off our list at number 10 are the Therizinosaurs. Without a doubt, some of the strangest dinosaurs ever to walk the earth. Therizinosaurs are a group of theropods that broke the usual mode of sharp-toothed predators and instead adapted to a primarily plant-based diet. Now, what makes them relevant for discussion on intelligence isn't their bizarre appearance, but what their brains and senses suggest. In Erlikosaurus, CT scans of the skull reveal relatively enlarged forebrain regions and well-developed sensory systems for smell, hearing, and balance, an unusual profile for a large herbivore. These findings indicate that Therizinosaurs may have retained sophisticated sensory processing from their predatory ancestors, repurposed for a browsing lifestyle. Their anatomy also tells a story of ecological flexibility. Therizinosaurs had a variety of tooth shapes and those massive claws that may have been used for pulling down branches or manipulating vegetation. Surviving as a selective browser, especially at large body sizes, requires more than just grazing. It demands knowing which plants to eat, how to reach them, and when to switch food sources depending on the season. Think of it this way. A grazing cow can get by eating whatever grass is underfoot, But an elephant, with its trunk and selective browsing habits, needs much more behavioral flexibility. Therizinosaurs fall closer to the elephant-like end of the spectrum, and while they likely weren't solving puzzles like parrots, their unusual brain structure and versatile feeding strategy suggest they may have been smarter than the average plant-eating dinosaur. And that's why they kick off our list at number 10. At number 9, we have Parasaurolophus, a duck-billed dinosaur that makes a compelling case for social, sensory, and acoustic intelligence backed by real fossil evidence. Let's start with the brain. CT scans and endocast, including those from a juvenile specimen known as RAM 14000, shows that Parasaurolophus had a fairly well-developed brain case for a hadrosaurid, giving us a window into its sensory and cognitive abilities. But the real showstopper is the crest. This long, hollow tube extended from its skull. As early as the 1970s, paleontologists proposed it function as a resonating chamber for vocal communication. Decades later, both digital acoustic models and physical reconstructions have backed this up. Models of Parasaurolophus predict calls resonating around 30 Hz, deep, low-frequency sounds capable of traveling very long distances. And in 2024, researchers even tested a 3D-printed version of the crest passages, confirming its ability to amplify sound much like a bird's vocal sac. Even more compelling, the inner ear of Parasaurolophus appears tuned to those same low frequencies, meaning not only could it produce these sounds, but it was adapted to hear them too. So while it didn't have the high brain-to-body ratio of Troodontids or Dromaeosaurs, its adaptations for vocal communication, sensory integration, and herd signaling suggest it was one of the most socially and behaviorally sophisticated herbivores of its time, and that earns it the number 9 spot on our list. Coming in at number 8 are the Ornithomimids, better known as the ostrich-mimic dinosaurs. These fast, long-legged theropods roamed across North America and Asia during the late Cretaceous. Some of the most iconic members include Gallimimus from Mongolia, made famous by Jurassic Park, and Ornithomimus, the namesake of the group in North America. So why do they earn a spot on this list? First, let's look at their brains. Endocast studies show that Ornithomimids had relatively large brain cases compared to many other non-avian dinosaurs. In particular, the forebrain and optic regions were well developed, which points to strong sensory processing and visual acuity. This is the kind of investment you'd expect in a highly alert, fast-moving animal that needed to make quick decisions on the run. Their lifestyle also gives us clues. Ornithomimids were likely omnivores. Some had toothless beaks and evidence of a mixed diet that may have included plants, insects, small animals, and even eggs. Omnivory requires adaptability, being able to switch strategies between grazing, browsing, and opportunistic hunting or scavenging. That kind of dietary flexibility is strongly associated with higher problem-solving abilities in modern animals, since a broader menu means more decision-making and learning. On top of that, these dinosaurs were extremely fast. Estimates suggest they could hit speeds similar to modern ostriches, perhaps up to 40 to 50 miles per hour. Now, speed alone doesn't equal intelligence. Plenty of fast animals rely on instinct and reflex, but running at that pace in a complex environment requires sharp sensory feedback and quick decision-making to dodge obstacles, evade predators, and react to sudden changes. In modern ecosystems, prey animals like ostriches and antelope rely just as much on their awareness and split-second choices as on their legs. And Ornithomimids certainly would have faced the same pressures. Finally, there's the possibility of social behavior. Fossil evidence hints that some species may have lived in groups, which would further elevate the cognitive demands, recognizing individuals, coordinating movement, and potentially even engaging in display behaviors. Put it all together, a large brain for their size, sharp senses, dietary flexibility, and a lifestyle that demanded constant awareness, and Ornithomimids stand out as some of the most intelligent non-avian theropods. They weren't just fast, they were clever, adaptable survivors. At number 7, we have one of the most spectacular small dinosaurs ever discovered, Microraptor. This crow-sized Paravian lived in the forest of early Cretaceous China and is famous for its 4 wings, long feathers not only on its arms, but also on its legs. This unusual body plan allowed it to glide and possibly even make short-powered flights through dense forest ecosystems. But what makes Microraptor stand out in terms of intelligence is this combination of its anatomy, diet, and behavior. Fossils of Microraptor preserve direct gut contents, and they show a surprisingly varied diet. Small mammals, birds, lizards, and even fish. That kind of generalist, opportunistic feeding is usually tied to adaptability and problem solving, because a predator has to adjust its strategies depending on the prey it encounters. Compare that to a strict specialist like a leaf-eating sauropod, which doesn't need much flexibility. Endocast studies suggest Microraptor had well-developed optic lobes and a strong vestibular system. In other words, it had sharp eyesight and excellent balance, both essential for aerial maneuvering and hunting in cluttered habitats. Think of Microraptor like a blend between a hawk and a flying squirrel. It needed the awareness to track prey on the ground or in the air, the agility to launch from a branch, and the control to land without crashing. That constant feedback between senses and movement is cognitively demanding, and it suggests a brain working at a higher level than most dinosaurs of its size. All of this makes Microraptor more than just a curiosity with 4 wings. It was a clever little predator that could adapt to a wide range of challenges, which earns it a solid spot at number 7 on this list. At number 6, we have Maiasaura, a hadrosaurid whose name means the good mother lizard. Unlike some of the other dinosaurs on this list, Maiasaura doesn't stand out because of its brain size, but because of the extraordinary evidence of its behavior. In the late 1970s, paleontologist Jack Horner uncovered an incredible site in Montana, nicknamed Egg Mountain. Here, he and his team found hundreds of fossilized nests, eggs, hatchlings, and juveniles, all belonging to Maiasaura. The nests were neatly arranged in colonies, each one carefully spaced from the next, much like how modern seabirds or penguins nest in dense but orderly groups. The fossils inside the nest told an even more fascinating story. Many hatchlings had poorly ossified leg bones, meaning they were too weak to walk right after hatching and must have depended on their parents. Some nests even contained juveniles at different stages of growth, which suggests that parents returned to feed and protect their young for weeks after hatching. This kind of extended parental care is rare in reptiles, but common in birds and mammals, and it's strongly associated with higher social complexity. Caring for offspring requires memory, coordination, and social awareness. In modern ecosystems, animals like elephants, wolves, or crows that invest in their young also tend to have more sophisticated behaviors. Add to that the evidence of massive Maiasaura bone beds, which show they live in large herds, and you get a picture of a dinosaur that thrived in a social cooperative world. Herd living means recognizing individuals, coordinating movement, and communicating, all behaviors linked to higher intelligence. So while Maiasaura's brain anatomy might not rival sharp-minded predators, its evidence of colonial nesting, extended parental care, and complex social behavior puts it high on the list of intelligent dinosaurs. That's why Maiasaura lands here at number 6. At number 5, we have the Oviraptorosaurs, a group of feathered theropods from the late Cretaceous that give us an extraordinary window into bird-like intelligence and behavior. The most famous example is Oviraptor itself, which was long misunderstood. When the first fossil was found in the 1920s, it was preserved atop a nest of eggs. Paleontologists assumed it was stealing them, hence the name Oviraptor, or egg thief. But decades later, more complete fossils revealed the truth. Oviraptorosaurs were actually brooding their own nest, just like modern birds. Their eggs were laid in carefully arranged circular clutches, often in pairs, and adults were fossilized sitting directly on top of them, arms spread wide as if using their feathers to protect the eggs. This shows not only parental care, but also deliberate strategies for keeping eggs warm and safe, behaviors that go beyond simple instinct. There's also strong evidence for social and ecological intelligence. Many species had tall, elaborate crests that likely served as display structures. These would have been useful for visual communication and mating, social hierarchies, or species recognition, all of which point towards complex social behavior. Anatomically, Oviraptorosaurs had relatively high encephalization quotients compared to other dinosaurs, with skulls showing enlarged brain regions related to vision and balance. This fits with their bird-like agility and sharp sensory perception. Even their diet suggests adaptability. Oviraptorosaurs weren't all the same. Some were omnivores, some leaned herbivory, and others may have specialized in cracking mollusks. That kind of dietary flexibility would have demanded problem-solving and behavioral versatility. Put it all together, and we get a picture of dinosaurs that were not solitary egg thieves, but socially complex, adaptable, and highly bird-like animals. And that's why they take the number 5 spot on our list. At number 4, we have the Dromaeosaurs. This group includes iconic raptors like Velociraptor and Deinonychus. And while they weren't nearly as smart as Jurassic Park makes them out to be, the real animals were still likely quite intelligent compared to most other dinosaurs. First, their brain anatomy is notable. Scans of Velociraptor skulls show a relatively large brain with well-developed olfactory bulbs and optic lobes. This means they likely had excellent senses of smell and vision, crucial for tracking prey and navigating complex environments. Their forebrains were also moderately enlarged, suggesting more sophisticated processing abilities than most non-avian theropods. Second, their EQ values were higher than the dinosaur average. While they didn't reach the extreme levels of Troodontids, Dromaeosaurs still ranked among the top tier for non-avian dinosaurs, implying a capacity for flexible, adaptive behavior rather than instinct alone. The fossil record offers hints of this behavior. Remains of Deinonychus have been found alongside the herbivore Tenontosaurus, which some paleontologists interpret as possible evidence for coordinated hunting. Their anatomy also supports advanced predatory abilities. With grasping hands, large sickle claws, and stiffened tails for balance, Dromaeosaurs were built for precision. Effectively using those adaptations in fast dynamic encounters would have required fine motor control, decision-making, and coordination. On top of that, they appear to have been ecologically versatile. While many preyed on small vertebrates, some may have scavenged opportunistically, taking advantage of whatever food sources were available. That kind of adaptability is another hallmark of higher intelligence, much like what we see in modern raptors such as hawks and eagles. And finally, as close relatives of birds, Dromaeosaurs shared much of the same neurological architecture that underpins avian intelligence today. For all these reasons, the Dromaeosaurs earn their place here at number 4 as some of the cleverest predators of the Mesozoic. At number 3, we have the early Avialans, the very first true birds and their close relatives, with Archaeopteryx being the most iconic example. These animals lived around 150 million years ago in the late Jurassic, and they represent a critical evolutionary step between small feathered theropods and modern birds. So why do they rank so high on our list of the smartest dinosaurs? The key is that early Avialans already show brain structures approaching those of modern birds, which are among the most intelligent animals alive today. CT scans of Archaeopteryx skulls reveal an enlarged forebrain and cerebellum crucial for complex motor control, balance, and sensory integration, all essential for flight. One striking feature is their large optic lobes, which indicate exceptional vision. For a small animal navigating three-dimensional space, whether that be by gliding or flapping through forest, this level of sensory processing would have been vital. The expansion of visual and vestibular brain regions suggests not just instinct, but advanced spatial awareness and motor coordination, abilities strongly linked to intelligence in modern birds. Fossils also give us direct evidence of feather structure and wing mechanics. Archaeopteryx and similar species had asymmetrical flight feathers, a hallmark of aerodynamic adaptation. The fact that they could use their wings for gliding, maneuvering, and perhaps even burst-of-powered flight points towards neurological sophistication. Flight isn't just about having wings, it requires a finely tuned brain capable of integrating sensory input, balance, and rapid adjustments in real time. Diet adds another layer to this. Early Avialans were likely generalist, feeding on insects, small vertebrates, and possibly fruits or seeds, traits we also see in many modern birds that thrive across diverse environments. And finally, there's their evolutionary position. Early Avialans had already surpassed most other non-avian dinosaurs in terms of relative brain size or EQ. Their EQ values fall within the lower range of modern birds, far above the reptilian average, and suggest a clear step towards higher cognition. So while they weren't yet tool-using geniuses like today's crows or parrots, early Avialans were unmistakably on the path towards that level of intelligence. Their combination of enhanced brain anatomy, advanced sensory processing, and ecological flexibility makes them one of the smartest groups of dinosaurs we know of, and a natural choice for number 3 on this list. While we've already covered the classic Dromaeosaurs on this list, there's one member of the family that truly outshines all of its cousins in terms of smarts: Bambiraptor. Don't let the name fool you, this small predator was anything but simple-minded. In fact, it may have had one of the largest relative brain sizes of any non-avian dinosaur ever discovered. The holotype specimen described in 2000 by Burnham and colleagues was a juvenile, and that's actually very important. Juveniles almost always have proportionally larger brains than adults because their bodies haven't yet caught up in size. But even so, the endocranial volume of Bambiraptor suggests an EQ approaching the lower range of modern birds. That is extraordinary for a non-avian dinosaur. Even after adjusting for the juvenile effect, paleontologists agree that its brain was exceptionally well developed for its size. The brain case morphology is also telling. CT scans and reconstructions reveal enlarged cerebral hemispheres and optic lobes, suggesting sharp vision and advanced sensory integration. Its inner ear structure indicates excellent balance and coordination, which fits with a small agile predator navigating complex environments. But Bambiraptor's intelligence isn't just about its brain. Its forelimbs were highly flexible and almost bird-like, with a range of motion exceeding most other Dromaeosaurs. This suggests fine motor skills, the kind of ability associated with manipulation and problem-solving. Some paleontologists have even speculated it could have engaged in limited tool-like behaviors, though that remains unproven. Still, the potential for sophisticated interaction with its environment is clear. So while it isn't as famous as Velociraptor or Deinonychus, Bambiraptor has become something of a benchmark in paleontology for understanding the origins of bird-like intelligence in theropods. That's why it earns the number 2 spot on this list. And finally, taking the top spot on our list is of course the Troodontids, often cited as the smartest non-avian dinosaurs known to science. These small to medium-sized theropods, closely related to dromaeosaurs and birds, consistently top analysis of brain-to-body ratios. Endocast studies starting with Phil Curry's work in the 1980s and refined with later CT-based research show that Troodontids had the highest known EQ of any non-avian dinosaur. Their brains weren't just large, they were complexly organized. The cerebral hemispheres were notably expanded, suggesting enhanced problem-solving and processing abilities. The optic lobes were large, indicating keen vision, while inner ear anatomy points to finely tuned balance and head movement control. Well-developed auditory regions also suggest excellent hearing. Together, these adaptations paint the picture of a highly sensory-driven predator capable of nuanced behavior. Dietary evidence reinforces this. Troodontids had serrated, recurved teeth, with wear patterns suggesting an omnivorous or opportunistic diet, small vertebrates, insects, and possibly some plant material. This kind of dietary flexibility is often linked to behavioral adaptability, as seen in modern omnivores like crows or primates. Behaviorally, while direct evidence of cooperative hunting is lacking, their sensory sophistication and quick reflexes indicate a predator capable of complex ambush strategies. Large eyes with stereoscopic vision, combined with high EQ, imply more than simple instinct. These were animals that could learn, adapt, and solve problems in real time. Troodontids' evolutionary potential has also captured imaginations. Paleontologist Dale Russell famously speculated about a hypothetical dinosaurid, a bipedal big-brain descendant, to illustrate just how advanced troodontid neuroanatomy was. While purely speculative, it underscores their cognitive potential. In short, troodontids represent the pinnacle of non-avian dinosaur intelligence as we currently understand it. With the largest brains relative to body size, highly refined senses, and flexible feeding strategies, they offer the clearest evidence that some dinosaurs were clever, adaptable, and far from simple reptiles. Troodontids weren't just survivors of the Cretaceous, they were among the sharpest minds of the Mesozoic. Thanks everyone for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any future content. And a special shout out to my channel members. Thank you so much for your support. Until next time, stay curious, and I'll see you all in the next video.